I drank 8 days a week. Creighton Park joins us from Deer Hollow Recovery to share lots of the one-liners he has learned in recovery. He is learning to put back into the stream of life instead of taking from it. He tells his story of treatment, failures, starting on a graveyard shift and working his way up to an operations manager, and the importance of the 12-step program at Alcoholics Anonymous. Enjoy.
Today, we are so excited to talk to Creighton Park. Creighton is an outpatient operations manager at Deer Hollow Recovery and Wellness Centers. Creighton uses his life experience to help people through similar situations. Sobriety can be a tricky thing to navigate, and he hasn't done it perfectly. But he has been able to put some days together and may in turn be able to help the next person attempting to find some hope in life. And I love that, Creighton, the way you just put it out there authentically, and this is the way life is. Thanks. And thanks for being with us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
I'm wondering maybe if you just start off giving a little background. How did you get into the substance abuse industry, and maybe what brought you to Deer Hollow?
Yeah, let's see. I'll try to keep this short-winded. So I went through a treatment center, and in 2015 to 2016, and I always looked up to the house managers there, guys that had some time and came from similar situations as me, and so they required an X amount of time, in sobriety to work there. And I was attending their alumni meetings that they had every week and talked to the house manager, and he, said, we've got an opening. And so I worked graveyards over the weekend because I had another full-time job, just to kind of see what it was like and see if I could potentially be that guy that I looked up to while I was in treatment. And, fast forward a couple of more years, I had left the graveyard shift, thankfully, and I was working in warehousing. And I had a friend reach out to me who worked at the outpatient for that rehab center. Hadn't spoken to him for a while, and it just kind of landed in my lap. And he said, your name came across our table, and we would love for you to come interview. And so, July of 2019, I left my job of 3.5 years in warehousing, and took the dive into, the recovery field, and loved it. Didn't feel like I was clocking in every day, just kind of showing up and talking with some dudes, and really just sharing my experience of how I've been able to string a few days together at that time. And it ended up like November of 2019, that treatment center closed their facility that I was working at. So I had this moment, and it was probably lasted about a week, where I was just so mad that I had left my secure job that had the benefits and the good pay, and was reliable. Like I wasn't afraid of losing my job, to find myself unemployed. And thank God that that happened, because it did lead me to Deer Hollow. So I started in Deer Hollow in December of 2019 and have loved every good and challenging minute of it. Um, I love just showing up and using my life experience as a part of my means to survive. I think it's a pretty unique opportunity that not many people are afforded.
In Creighton, I think that's kind of, it's interesting how life kind of throws those balls at us, those curve balls that end up being better than we could have ever imagined, although it's terrifying in the moment. So I love that you share that. So you're at Deer Hollow. You've been there for several years, and they've been growing pretty significantly. Can you talk a little bit about that growth?
Yeah. It's funny. I'm gonna touch back on kind of those curveballs because I started in December, and then that following March, COVID hit, and found our Deer Hollow had to suspend services for a little while, and I found myself unemployed again after 4 months. And was again kind of reflecting back on that decision to leave the industry that I've been in for so long, and actually got a job offer from them wanting me to come back. And I sat with that for a minute and just thought, like, I don't want to do that. Like, my heart is not in warehousing. It's just it was not the most enjoyable jobs. And I love what I do now. And so fast forward through COVID and Deer Hollow trying to acclimate to the world, in this new pandemic world that we've lived through. And so we started doing telehealth services, they brought us all back. And so to watch us grow from, it's a unique year to look back at is because we were our clientele, we had a bigger population when I first started, and then COVID, and then it's kind of trickled back, and we're trying to navigate everything right now, and we're starting to see that occupancy level grow, with our IOP and our PHP programs, and I know residential has no shortage. They're doing good things up there, and I hope that our outpatient facility can be at least 1% of what residential has going. That would be a success in my book. And so to see the growth over this last year has been really unique, and I don't know that anybody's been through that, right, with this pandemic. So it's been cool to see us ramp back up and start to grow and kind of change the way we do programming.
Well, and you mentioned COVID. COVID's thrown a curveball at all of us, I think, something we've never experienced before and had to figure out how to adapt to it. And I've seen a lot of facilities that have had COVID outbreaks and had to shut down or not quite know how to address the needs, that the health department wanted, and so they've kind of stalled at a time when there was more of a need for substance abuse treatment than ever before. And so it's good to hear that we've kind of got our feet back under us and able to help those people.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm glad that we at least had our telehealth services available. I mean, in end of May of last year. So about a year ago, we started those, and really were able to kind of help people remotely as best as we could. And then start bringing them back in person, and making sure that we're following all the guidelines, and, knock on wood, I don't think we've had an outbreak at either facility. And so that's speaks volumes to our executive director, and how, how worried she is with the germs and all that. And it's really done wonders for us as a facility, being able to stay open consistently, and keep helping those people out there.
Very cool. I'm wondering, as you talk about the curveballs that have come your way, and being let go several times, That's enough to drive anyone back to their drug of choice.
Hmm.
How do you know in your own journey, and maybe talk about that a little bit? What's your journey, and what changed that allow you to maintain sobriety during those hard times?
Yeah, so I mean, a quick rundown of my journey. I'm a native Utahn. I was born and raised in Utah County, from a single parent home. My parents divorced when I was 3, and a perk of working in dual diagnosis facility where we have the substance abuse and trauma is I recognize now, which I didn't, just a few years ago, was that was a very traumatic experience for me. Um, my first memory of my dad, and this is to no fault of him or my mom, but were them upstairs, sitting across from each other, and my mom is bawling, and my dad is, sitting there talking to her, and I'm curious if that was the conversation that they had, that was the divorce, or something to deal with that. But so growing up, it was just me and my older brother and my mom, and she worked as a school teacher for. She retired after 35 years, not too long ago, and she provided the best that she could for us. And as I got older, I don't know that anybody ever said this to me, but I felt that my brother was always, on a pedestal above me, and I was always trying to, get to that level. I never felt like I fit in anywhere. Going to church wasn't my thing, but like the hard edged kids at school weren't my thing, and so I would just kind of float around and try to fit in where I could. And then, I had the opportunity to drink when I was 16, almost 17. And hear this a lot is, the sun rose in my belly. Like I felt like I belonged in that moment, for the first time in my life. And so I wanted that as much as possible. Still trying to hide it from my mom, right, and her religious views and kids in school, because I didn't want them thinking, anything bad about me. And so talking to my party friends on the weekends, don't say this to anybody at school, and trying to show face and keep my reputation alive. And it started out just every other weekend, and moved quickly to every weekend. And by the time I graduated high school, I was crushing pain pills in the bathroom on the back of my iPod. They still had iPods back then. And that took me, I don't know how I graduated high school. I don't know how, I kept things under wrap for so long now looking back at it. But that summer after I graduated, I was siphoning money from my mom's bank account, and that lasted 3 months. And I was stealing the bank statements out of the mail so that she wouldn't find them. And up until that point, she had a lot of trust in me, so she would leave her purse out, and it wasn't a big deal. And so I would swipe her card, and it finally caught up to me, and I lied about it. I said I spent it on food and Lagoon, right? And I'm still trying to hold on to that control. And I got kicked out. Was living with my cousin and his older brother and their wife and their dad. So there was 5 of us in a 2-bedroom apartment. I'm sleeping on the floor, miserable, but not willing to stop. And so I get a phone call from my mom, and she says, you have an ultimatum. I'm going to press charges, or you're going to go to treatment. And as an 18-year-old, it's like, well, obviously I don't want a record, so let's go to treatment. I ended up by choice, Odyssey House. And I don't know why I chose Odyssey House, because back then it was like a 2-year program, average graduation time. So yeah, I ended up there. And one thing that I know different from Odyssey House when I was there, and from the treatment experience I had in 2015, was I don't know that I was given a solution for when I got out of treatment. I was fast tracked through Odyssey House. I completed that program in 9 months and went back home to the same house, the same friends, the same job, and within a few weeks was getting loaded again. And that went from Percocets to OxyContin and very quickly moved into heroin. And thought that I could find different ways to solve my problem. So I got married. Hey, she'll fix it, right? If I get married, she's going to make everything right. That was not the case. I was withdrawing on my honeymoon. Was in St. George and convinced her, like, well, Vegas, I have a better chance in Vegas. We drove to Vegas, and long story short, was just so sick that we came home early and tried the geographical change. Like, hey, if I move, I'll get better. And so we moved, and I wasn't doing heroin every day, but I was drinking 8 days a week. So finally I get back and I get a bunch of legal trouble. In the year of 2015, I got divorced. And of that year, 11 months were spent in jail or in a treatment center. And so that led me to treatment. July 26th of 2015, I got arrested, and wasn't anything new to me. I'd been in jail before, and for some reason, I had this little moment of clarity thinking somebody somewhere knows something that I don't. I don't want to do this anymore, but I don't know how to stop. So I called my mom, and she actually had a restraining order against me at the time. Called her from jail, right? Hadn't spoken to her for a couple of years, and I don't know why she answered the phone, but she answered the phone and she took my call. And in some way or another, I asked her for some help. And over that, I was sentenced to another 4 months. So over those 4 months, she went to bat for me and tried to get me insurance and tried to find me, a treatment center. But actually, it was July 23rd that I got arrested. July 26th is my sobriety date. So that'll tell you that I'm completely powerless over any substance if it's available. So the last time that I used in a county jail with a guy I'd never met, and didn't see him for the rest of my stay in jail. So I got out of jail and I went straight to a treatment center, and guess who's sitting in the front room of that treatment center? The guy I got loaded with for the last time. Crazy thing about it is he's still sober today, and he's one of my best friends. We've got a little group of us that we talk every day. We send texts to each other, and every year we go back to the treatment center to pick up our chip, and we share that story, and we, get all the guys that are in house to laugh and try to relate to them. But so I ended up at that treatment center, and they introduced me to the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I don't know that there's much about that treatment center today that keeps me sober. But what keeps me sober today are the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, which is, the program that I'm engaged in. And so to round it back to your initial question, like, what is it that allows me to navigate some of those tough situations? 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous have given me a solution to my problem today. And I recognize that I'm the problem. The way that I think, the way that I interact with life, like, that's the problem when I'm not engaged in my own recovery. So I've got to do that every day, Well,
I think the story you share, which is really interesting, is not. I mean, it's not incredibly unique. I mean, you hear so many talk about this trauma of divorce and how that changes their their perspective and how they feel about themselves, and they don't quite fit in, and it's interesting that we hear this story over and over again, but it becomes still really difficult to go back and identify those people that are feeling that in high school and trying to intercept there. So I mean, I guess telling the story over and over again may give us get us to a better place. We talked to a guy here not too long ago that that's what he does. He goes in and he tells his stories in high school, and he tries to help them understand that there's help and there's places that they can go to get that help. And I think that's powerful.
Love that.
You said something that I thought was a little bit interesting. The sun rose in my belly,
Mm.
that first drink that you took. And the question that I asked myself is, that's a pretty euphoric feeling. Do you replace that now, or how do you think about that kind of feeling now?
I think that feeling for me now is further and farther between. And I'm okay with that because I think I enjoy it more. Um, when I'm drinking or when I'm drugging, I'm chasing that euphoric feeling and I'm never getting to where I think it is. Um, Today, I think rather than those high mountaintops and those low valleys of my emotions and life, it's more just kind of rounded hills. Um, with the sprinkle of a euphoric feeling was like watching my 4-year-old boy graduate preschool, right? Like, as silly as that sounds, like I got to show up for him and watch him get his little diploma bag and like sing the songs and you know his teachers reading what he loves about preschool and was able to be there sober and present, was able to share space with his mother who is married and has her own family and hasn't always been a great relationship, and I was able to be there and not worry about any of the shit, right? Just be there and recognize that. And so I think that they are further and farther between, but I don't know that that's a bad thing for myself.
Well, and it replaces that, because what a proud moment to be sober and to be able to really take in that whole experience, and of your son and all that was happening there. That's a cool thing, right? That's deep. You feel that deeply. So I love that you can replace that, synthetic feeling with something
Mm,
even better.
yeah.
Yeah, it's certainly more healthy, like you said, right? But the other thing is that the studies are showing that now, like some of the dopamine and some of that type of um, transaction in your body, however that works, is almost as strong when you're looking back at that memory,
Mm,
right? So it's not only is it a natural high, but it's a sustainable one, right? Like that's a building block now for life that you get to kind of hang on to and cherish with, your son moving forward, as opposed to the previous, unrealistic overdose high that is fleeting, comes and goes and is gone, right? Which
right.
is super cool. One of the other things that you mentioned was that when you went into treatment, you really looked up to that house manager. What
Hmm.
were the things about them, that stuck out to you, and why was that attractive?
Yeah, so I think it was an all male facility, and these house managers would run some of our therapeutic community groups at night, and um, would be in the office, and we could go in and talk to them. And I actually knew one of the house managers from high school. I knew his little sister, and I knew a little bit about him, and he drove me one day. I was maybe he'd been there 2 weeks, and he drove me to see my probation officer in American Fork. And just talking to him on that car ride and listening to him share his experience of jails and institutions and homelessness, to see him now like showing up for a job, right? And like being consistent and sober, like those were all things that I just couldn't conceive. So the physical sobriety was like, yeah, I want that. I don't know if I can get that. But the mannerisms, the way they carried themselves, their characteristics, their traits, kind of like those outward morals that I felt from them was like, yeah, I really like that. Like that's attractive to me, but I don't know if I'm capable of doing that. So I just faked it, right? Like treatment was easy for me. I'd been institutionalized the whole year, so it was like I can follow rules and not get kicked out. Like I cannot smoke cigarettes when we go on rec therapy, and I cannot like do these things so that I can stay here, because my alternative was the park, like sleeping on the bench. But that took hold in me. And I don't know if it was by the time I got out of treatment, but very soon after was like, this is achievable. I can have what all of these guys have said they have. And the common variable there was they were working 12 steps. And so I started to work the 12 steps.
Which you don't do 12 steps at a time.
That's right.
Right? It's one step at a time, and that first one is one that, you got to fight your way through, and then not till you're through that one, then start to digest the second one, right? So it's kind of like you said, it's cool that you had him as a kind of a mentor and someone to look up to, but it's kind of just the way everything is in life, right? Whether it's sobriety or your career or being a parent or whatever, you kind of just show up and make an attempt at it. That's the first step, right? And the more you're not good at it, eventually you kind of just find your rhythm, and that's good.
That's funny. My sponsor, I have this playlist, if you will, an internal playlist that just replays in my mind every single day of one-liners that he's told me. And he's always telling me, suit up and show up. That's all you have to do. And that one-liner, as much as I hate it sometimes, has saved my ass so many days. There's many days where I don't want to pick up the phone when a sponsee calls, or there's plenty of days when I don't want to go to a meeting or meet with my sponsor. And then I hear that, and damn it, I got to show up. I got to go. So it's funny how my mind works. Like I want all of the results that this program, that the program I'm involved in has to offer. But a lot of the times I don't know if I want to do all of the work. I kind of want to skirt around and take the easier way and maybe clip a corner and then say, okay, give me all of these good results. But that's not how it works. I've come to find out.
Well, and it's not an easy journey either. It's a tough journey to be on. And I think about other people that I've seen go through the 12 steps, and they'll bomb through it and just go, yeah, I did it, in a couple of months. And it's like, yeah, you didn't do it. Do it again. And I don't know if that's your journey or not, and if you had to do it 3 or 4 or 5 times, or how that looks.
So, yeah, I think so. I had 2 experiences prior to treatment with 12-step meetings, and both times I showed up loaded. So I was just at a point where I was kind of willing to just go with the suggestions when I got to treatment. I don't know that I got to treatment like wanting long-term sobriety. I almost wanted to partake in heroin like a gentleman, if you will, do it if I could and not burn and cause the chaos that I was doing. But, I had a therapist tell me when I was in treatment, stack the deck in your favor. Is aftercare going to keep you sober? No. Is AA going to keep you sober? Maybe. Is engaging with the fellowship going to keep you sober? Maybe. Is the 12 step, all these different things. So I'm trying to stack it in my favor so that I have some success. And one of those suggestions was finding a sponsor, and I found a sponsor, and we burned through the steps. We met every single week. And we got to the 4th step, and he said, you have 2 weeks to finish this. And if you're not ready in 2 weeks, find somebody else. And that's what I needed, was let's get in it. Let's find the solution, and let's keep moving. And so, fast forward to I think July, so a full year. I had been sober, and I was I was through the 12 steps, and I'd been out of treatment for 6 months. I picked up my year chip. I was on vacation in California. Picked up my year chip, at a meeting on the beach in Dana Point at sunset. And it was kind of another one of those euphoric feelings of okay, like this is a possible solution for me. That sponsor at the time had kind of drifted away from the program, but I was still in touch with him and thought to myself, he's a good dude, right? And he's still sober, but he's not doing what I'm doing. And so I knew who his sponsor was. And I'd been in many meetings where I'd heard him speak and share. And it was another one of those, there's something about him that I want. And I asked him, and I've had him for 4.5 years, and we've gone through the steps, I think, 3 times. So a long-winded answer. I feels like every year or so I got to get back in it. I got to get back into the book and really engage and do a thorough first step, second step, third step, fourth, so on until the end.
What does needing to redo those look like for you? Is that a relapse? Is that just okay, I'm feeling a little hollow. This is a way to kind of steroid up a little bit on.
Yeah, I think I want to beef up, right? Like it's something that I've learned in my recovery is if I'm not continually growing, that stagnant feeling is pretty toxic for me. I want to continue to learn more about me. I want to continue to grow, my program and my spiritual connection with this higher power that's talked about. And so no, it's not a relapse, but it's I kind of just get an itch. And that itch has thus far forced me back into the book, where I get to identify some of those character defects and I get to work on some new ones that I didn't know had popped up. And I get to re-engage this relationship with my higher power and explore different ways on how to connect, to that and through what avenues and eventually bringing me to the 12th step of, hey, get your ass in gear and start giving back.
That's powerful. And I think the moral of the story is there's not a wrong way to do the 12 steps, but that you've got to keep doing them, right? You've got to keep adhering to those principles. You talked about men in your life. It sounded like most of them were men that were these models that you said, I want what that guy has. And I think you used the word morals.
Mm-hmm.
What does that look like, and how is that transformed in your life?
Yeah, so I have many men in my life today who are involved in sobriety who I look up to, who exemplify characteristics or traits that I want. And so I stick with them, right? In treatment, it was stick with the winners, and I still try to do that. But when I came to treatment, I didn't have any standards. I had no values or morals. I was just doing anything to service myself. And so to see guys who had the same story as me, who had been through similar experiences, who had felt like me at many different points in my life, again, showing up to work, right, and being honest and showing up when they say they're going to show up, and have some compassion and empathy, that's stuff that I wanted. And I think by surrounding myself with those guys and engaging in this program, those are the most valuable things that I have today. You talk about what sobriety and my program has given me. It's like, yeah, it's given me, first 3 years of my sobriety, I didn't have a license. I'd gotten 3 DUIs in 3 months. And so the state said, yeah, it's probably not safe for you to drive. So let's take that license from you. So sobriety has given me that license, and it's given me the car in the garage that has my license plates on it, and it's registered to me. And, it's given me the opportunity to have gainful employment, to earn money. But the important thing to me that I don't want to lose are the internal things of, compassion and empathy and reliability and honesty and integrity. Like those are the things that I cherish most, because when I start to lose those, it's very easy for me to slip back into guilt and shame and self-pity. And I know where that stuff leads me. I'm an effect-driven person, so I like the effects produced by X, Y, and Z. And so this program has given me the effect that I like.
That's very cool, and I love hearing that. I mean, you can almost see your journey from, no morals, no values, no standards, to there might be something better out there, and I want to be somebody different than I am, and then that hope. And then I heard you talk about a few pivotal moments in your life where someone influenced you, and got you to think twice about who you wanted to be and where you were going. So I think that's a common thing. So I love to hear you share that. As you were talking, you talked about your last high, which was in jail. And I'm curious, as a mother, I think I've heard plenty of mothers say, if my child's in jail, at least I know they're safe.
Hmm.
And now I'm concerned that perhaps they may not be safe. How prevalent is drugs in jail?
Um, it depends. I've spent some time in a few different county jails, and extended amounts of time, I'll say, and those extended amounts of time, um, it's not like it's everywhere, but you can find it if you want to find it, and obviously there's medications that can be abused that are prescribed while you're in jail that produce, a mind altering effect. Um, so I wouldn't say it's not like a black market kind of deal going on, but it's there, and if you want it, you find it. If that's what you're searching for, you're gonna find some way to make it happen. And that it's just very telling to me that without a solution, even in a lockdown facility, I'm gonna go to any length to change how I feel. And I did, even after that phone call of, I don't want to do this anymore. It's like I didn't even have a choice. It was just autopilot. Found out that there was some there, and hey, I need some of that.
I I think it's interesting what you've talked about, because if it's that drive, that thing that's the most important and prevalent in your mind, and that's the thing you're going to go after. And if you want it bad enough, you're going to get it. And it's interesting that that can have a shadow side just as much as it can have a gold side or a
Hmm.
positive side to it. And so it seems as though you've taken that drive and you've turned it into creating something that you really do want. And it's been a lot of work, but you've been able to create that life that is full of values, full of morals, and that you can be one of those models just like that changed your life.
Hmm. Excuse me. Yeah, I hope so. It still feels like big shoes to fill, right? But I hope my hope is, working in the field, excuse me, and being active in recovery is, if I can just help one person along the way, then it'll be worth it. Um, and I think a funny perspective that I've had is the people closest to me benefit more from me being sober and engaged in my own recovery than I do, because they're the first ones to feel the brunt of the chaos if I slip up, right? And so that's also like a factor. My son had him in sobriety. He's never seen me loaded, and he's never seen me drink, and um, a day at a time. I hope he doesn't have to.
That's a powerful motivator.
Yeah.
So, Creighton, what's in your future? What are your plans?
Oh, well, I am a full-time student right now. Hopefully going for my master's in social work. I just started college last August, so I'm fresh in. And so actually summer semester starts in 10 days or so, and I'm trying to burn through my associates so that I can take maybe a semester off and enjoy a little bit. But um, yeah, I think school, doing school, and then, I hope to continue working in the field and continue to stay sober and show up for those around me, one day at a time. I like to plan. I'm a planner for the future, but also like don't like to over identify with that stuff, because then I start copping resentments at everyone around me and God and this and that. And so right now I'm enjoying the break from school, enjoying this job and working at Deer Hollow and spending time with my son and trying to just show up in life. I want to put back into the stream of life rather than take from it like I did for so long. So continue to grow, continue to learn, and however that happens for me, I'm open to it.
That's pretty exciting. That's a great track to, become a social worker and be able to help on a different level, right? And be, just have those skills and that training to look underneath. But I think what you're doing right here and right now is enough, right? That you're being that model for others now, and that's pretty incredible. I honor you for that.
Thank you.
Lots of one-liners. I've got like 10 from you already today, so
I've turned into my sponsor. Damn it.
those are going into the bio. Well, I think it's what your goal was. So he
It
had what you
was.
wanted, right? So
Yeah.
that's a good thing.
Yeah.
That's so awesome. Creighton, thanks for being with us today. It's been a pleasure. I've loved hearing your story, and it'd be fun to connect here in another year or so and see where you're at.
Yeah, that would be great. I appreciate you guys doing what you're doing and having me on and allowing me to kind of ramble for the last 45 minutes.
It's not rambling. Like, everybody needs to hear a story, because it's not only is treatment different for everybody, but the stories that connect with people are different for every person, and everybody's got a process. So
For sure.
Well, and you never know when that one person is going to listen and go, "Oh, that's just like my story. I can relate to this guy so much. I got to talk to Creighton." And if somebody
Mm.
wants to talk to Creighton, how do they get a hold of you?
Um, I'm not on social media, so that makes it a little hard. If you can email me, you can find me on LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn. I know that's kind of lame, but LinkedIn, find me on LinkedIn. I'm there. Send me a message. I think that's probably the best route.
Perfect.
I think that is social media.
Yeah.
Is it? I don't scroll it like I used to with Instagram and Facebook and TikTok. So
Yeah, like you, I'm the same. I'm the same way. I keep myself pretty limited to that platform, because some of those other ones are a bit of a black hole. But it's the safer version a little bit.
That's right. A little more professional. That's how I'll justify it.
But LinkedIn's a good spot. That's plenty accessible. So
Yeah, find me there if you want to. If anybody is interested, yeah, that's where I'm at.
okay,
Fantastic. Thank you
thanks,
so much,
Creighton.
Creighton.
All right, thanks, guys. We'll see you.
Okay, see you.